Sometimes people pretend to be strong or confident. They might act kind, ambitious, or disciplined for a bit. But there are small things they do that show who they really are. A long time ago, a smart person named Machiavelli knew exactly how to spot these things. In his world, full of liars, people who only cared about themselves, and cowards, he couldn't just guess who was truly strong. He had to know, and he learned fast. Weakness isn't loud. It's subtle. It slips out in little ways. Strong people stay calm and quiet. But weak people show their true selves with habits they don't even notice. If you can see these habits in your rivals, co-workers, or even yourself, you'll have an edge. Machiavelli used this like a secret weapon, the ability to see weakness before it caused trouble. These behaviors aren't obvious. Most people would miss them, but Machiavelli didn't. He watched people like a hunter watches animals move, and he found 3 things that instantly showed a person was weak. 1. Talking to. Let's start with the first one. Over-explaining. Weak people explain a lot. Strong people just make decisions. That's it. Someone who always defends their choices, explains their actions too much, or tries to make everyone understand them isn't being honest. They're actually feeling unsure of themselves. Machiavelli saw this all the time. A leader who was sure of himself didn't talk much. But a minister, a merchant, or someone pretending to be important, they talked constantly. They needed others to agree with their ideas so they could feel good about themselves. It's what people do when they need others to like them. It's not fear them or respect them, just like them. Machiavelli saw this for what it really was, someone begging for approval to just exist. Over-explaining is like a smokescreen for fear. Fear of being rejected, judged, or losing power. Honestly, anyone who needs permission before they do something won't ever be trusted with real power. Real power needs quiet certainty. It needs you to make a move and not explain it to anyone. So next time someone keeps explaining their opinion, repeating their point, or trying to sound nice or morally perfect, you're not seeing strength. You're seeing them slowly fall apart. Inside. 2. Fake niceness. But that's just the first thing. The second is even trickier, using niceness as a weapon. This is the most dangerous kind of weakness because it looks friendly. Machiavelli knew that the weakest people didn't always look scared. They looked kind, helpful, and willing to please. But it wasn't true kindness. It was giving in, dressed up as a good quality. A strong person can be kind, but their kindness is carefully chosen and never comes at the cost of their self-respect. A weak person, however, tries to agree with everyone all the time. They agree to avoid problems. They give compliments to be liked. They stay quiet when they should speak up. They say sorry, not because they're wrong, but because they're afraid. And when being nice doesn't get them what they want, they change. They become bitter, sarcastic, or act annoyed without saying it directly. Why? Because their niceness wasn't real kindness. It was a trick to avoid being rejected. When the trick fails, their real bad feelings come out. Machiavelli studied this in public figures constantly. He wrote that a leader needs to know how to do wrong things and only do them if absolutely forced to. This means controlling yourself is not the same as being afraid, but using niceness as a weapon is always about fear. It's how someone acts when they don't know how to stand strong on their own. So they try to stay small, hoping no one will bother them. When you see this behavior, this forced friendliness that turns bad under pressure, you found someone who can't be trusted with power. Real power means being able to set boundaries, to say no without an apology, and to face problems without fake smiles. Machiavelli watched for this like a hawk because it told him that this person's loyalty would break the moment things got tough. 3. Needing attention all the time. Then there's a third behavior. It's more obvious and really sad to see. When you spot it, you'll know you're looking at someone who fears being unimportant more than anything else. The third behavior that made Machiavelli instantly label a man as weak was being addicted to showing off. You've seen it. The person who always needs to be noticed. The one who can't be still without getting praise. The one who posts online all the time, talks loudly, makes every win sound huge, and turns every moment into a show. Machiavelli saw these people everywhere, and he understood something most people still don't. The person who needs to be seen is afraid of being forgotten. That fear is a weakness, and not the kind from being poor or having no chances. It's the kind that comes from a broken sense of who they are. Because needing to show off isn't confidence. It's like a panic attack for someone who has no strong inner self. They think if people aren't talking about them, liking them, praising them, or envying them, then they don't matter. Their worth disappears the moment attention goes away. And that's exactly why Machiavelli saw them as risky. These people will do anything for attention. Lie, exaggerate, betray. They'll tell secrets, turn on friends, even make enemies out of nowhere, as long as someone is watching. In their minds, silence means death. Being still means being unimportant. And the worst thing is to be forgotten. Machiavelli knew that a person addicted to showing off is like a puppet waiting to be controlled. If you want to ruin them, you don't need to attack. You just ignore them. Take away their spotlight. Stop the applause. Make them feel invisible. Watch how fast they break. Strong people work on themselves in private, grow quietly, and act without warning. But the weak person can't last 5 minutes without being noticed. They're easy to guess, easier to control, and impossible to trust. Using weakness, this is why. Machiavelli feared weakness more than being bad, because at least a bad person knows what they want. The weak person wants everything but will trade anything to get it. When you combine these three behaviors, the constant explicable, it's a fake nice person, and the attention addict, you don't get a villain, you get an empty space. Someone so hollow that they'll become whatever a stronger person wants them to be. And that's what Machiavelli feared most. Not the loud ones, not the cruel ones, but the empty ones. Because emptiness can be filled with anything. And when the wrong person gets close, they fill it with destruction. But here's where Machiavelli went further. He didn't just spot weakness. He used it, turned these behaviors into tools, ways to predict things, ways to gain control. He knew that seeing a weak person early could mean the difference between having power and being betrayed. Because these people don't just break when tested, they melt. And in leadership, in war, in business, in trust, you can't rely on someone who melts. So how do you protect yourself? How do you act like Machiavelli you watch? You stop judging people by their smiles, their words, or their job titles. You start judging them by their common ways of acting. You study what they do when no one agrees with them, when no one is watching, when no one praises them, or when no one gives them a reason to act good. You look for the weak spots. The strong person doesn't panic in silence. They build, they get better, they plan. The weak person performs, explains, and falls apart. Once you can tell the difference instantly, you gain a weapon most people never even think about. It's called discernment. The power to see not just who someone pretends to be, but who they will become the moment things stop going their way. That's how Machiavelli chose his friends. That's how he avoided disaster. And that's how you can last longer than everyone who's still fooled by appearances. Because behind the right words and fake image, how someone acts never lies. Guiding the weak, Machiavelli didn't just spot weakness. He turned it into a way to get ahead. While others reacted to weakness with anger or disgust, Machiavelli reacted with a plan. Once you know someone's emotional weakness, how they panic, how they seek approval, you don't need to argue with them. You don't need to fight them. You just guide them, like pulling a puppet with strings. He understood something important. The weak person wants to be led. They just don't want to feel controlled. So Machiavelli gave them exactly what they wanted. Praise when they felt ignored. Agreement when they felt unsure. Flattery when they needed to feel important. Not because he respected them, but because he saw how easily they could be shaped. And that's where his true power came from. He didn't just rely on his own strength. He didn't force anyone to obey him. He made the weak obey themselves by giving them just enough emotional candy to keep them wanting his approval. It worked like this. He'd spot the over-explicable.
Okay.
The person who needed to explain everything,